Hello and welcome to the 100-Year Real Estate Investor podcast webinar. My name is Kristin Colca. I am a member of the 100-Year Real Estate Investor team. And today I am filling in for Gino hosting the podcast. I have with me today John Shedenhelm and Teresa Kuhn, two other 100-Year Real Estate Investor team members. Welcome.
Hi, Kristin.
Hello.
Thank you, Kristin. I must say you're a much prettier version than Gino.
Well, thank you for that. So today we wanted to share a client story with our listeners about how one of John's clients was able to leverage his cash value whole life insurance policy to invest in a business. And this really speaks to the dual asset strategy that we talk about, and how using your whole life insurance policy to invest in a business or in real estate can provide just a number of different, number one, returns that you're getting and benefits that you're getting that you're not thinking about when you think about traditional whole life insurance. So John, I'd love for you to start us off today by telling us the story about your client.
Okay. So many people, when they were looking at the dual asset strategy, they will always say, well, what's my rate of return, or what type of yield am I getting on this? And I always tell them, it's like, well, it depends on what you do with it. If you just put it into the life insurance the way we design it, it's going to be a great safe asset, even if you never use it. However, in my client's case, we teach people to use it for business and real estate and other things. So he had been funding his policy at like $50,000 a year for a period of years. And then he had an opportunity to invest in a car wash business. So he borrowed $500,000 from his cash value of his policy, put it into the car wash business, and expanded the business. And 7 years later, sold it for $16 million. So what kind of rate of return is that? Like, you have to, it's a very large number. Now, meanwhile, he was still earning all the dividends and interest in his policy, even though that $500,000 was in the car wash business. And now he's got that money, a tremendous profit. And now he's looking for his next business opportunity. So there's other examples of people like that, but that's somebody that it just happened recently. So, but we're working with a lot of real estate investors, and Teresa can expand on this too, that you can do the same thing with real estate.
That is such a great example of the dual asset strategy. So let's dive a little bit deeper into how that process worked. So he had the cash accumulated inside his policy. He was able to borrow against it $500,000. And what was happening to that $500,000 that he borrowed against the policy?
What was happening to it in relation to the policy itself?
Right.
So, we took the money out, we borrowed against the cash value. And he was paying 5% interest, simple interest. But he did not pay the interest. And a lot of people don't realize this. You don't have to pay the interest. You just let it accrue because the money was in the business. And then, so he's still getting the full dividend on that $500,000, even though the money wasn't there, and the contractual guaranteed growth as well. And now that he sold $16 million, even with the loan and interest, obviously that's plenty of money to pay back his loan. So his cash value now is it's close to $1 million, paying himself back, and he gets to use it again over and over for something else.
Great. So yeah, absolutely. I think 16 million is more than enough to pay off a $500,000 loan. But so he had the loan outstanding inside his policy. Yes, he's accruing interest, but he has the flexibility to decide, do I want to pay this back or do I not want to pay this back? Do I want to just let this money work for me inside my business and pay for it when I have that profit, when I've realized that profit, or do I want to make regular payments, right? And in his case, he said, no, I'm not going to make payments just yet. I'm using that money currently. But at the same time, he's not missing out on growing the $500,000 inside his policy. The insurance company hasn't recognized that that money is gone. So he's still getting interest and dividends on that $500,000 plus whatever other cash value is inside his policy that he hadn't borrowed against. So John, you said it took him about 7 years to kind of build up that business. He sold it. He sold it for $16 million. And so what did he do at that point as far as the proceeds? Did he pay back his policy loan at that time?
We're still working on that because it just happened. And he's also, and he literally within 90 days invested in another business. Now, he didn't use all those proceeds. He took a small portion of it. And then we're working with him on other strategies to minimize the taxes and things like that as well. So still doing a lot of planning for him. And some of that is expanding his life insurance as well, beyond what he has.
Got it. And the entire time that he's borrowed against his policy, started this business, he has death benefit protection inside the policy also, right? So if something were to happen to him, how would his family be able to benefit from the policy in terms of the death benefit and the business that he started?
Yeah, so if he had died during that entire process, which he didn't, the loan would be basically washed clean. The death benefit would pay out, which is much larger than what his cash value was, and it would have gone tax free to his wife and children. And that's something we don't talk enough about. I think is that it's tax free. It's tax free loan to go invest in that business. Now he had to pay taxes because he had a gain in the business, but that's a different matter. But the asset itself, the life insurance, is tax free while living. Held upon death, it is also federal income tax free.
That's wonderful. Teresa, anything that you would add to the story?
No, it's a great story. And I've got a couple questions for you, John. When you met this client and you were explaining the dual asset strategy at the time that he started the policy, what kind of resistance did he give you regarding the strategy, if any?
Like some people, they're always looking at it from, well, I could put this money to better use and make more money in the market or invest in real estate, not realizing that it's not, a lot of people, it's either this or that. In reality, the dual asset strategy, you're able to do both. And once he understood that, put the money in, he would still get all those benefits and growth, even though he's going to go invest in something else. Because if he does it through the bank, or if he had it in the market, he would have had to liquidate those accounts to go invest in that business. And that compounding would have been destroyed and done, wiped out. And that's what people don't understand about the power of the policy.
Right. It's not either or. It's you can do this and that. Like you can do both and more. And so it's just curious to me because, we've been doing this a very long time. And, when we first present the concept to a client and they have resistance around it, and then a couple of years later, they come back and they're like, I get it. Because one of the things we share with our clients is, look, when you're starting this, you can't even imagine the different ways that you're going to use this policy today. You have no idea what kind of options this policy gives you, because your world is this way today. And a couple of years from now, 5, 10, even 20 years from now, you're going to have options that enhances your financial life. And so today, fast forward, have you had a conversation with him about the benefits that he's gotten from these policies? Like, is he thrilled? Does he look back and say, hey, thank God we started this, John, because look at what I've been able to create? What's his feedback? I'm so curious about that.
Oh, he's thankful and sees the power in it, because if he had not done that, he probably would have invested in the stock market. And then 2008 would have come and would have hit him at a 40% loss. And a lot of people have forgotten about the market. Here we are 2022 and we're down, but we haven't really experienced any severe pain like we did in 2008 or 2001 and 02 and whatnot. So he's very grateful, understands the power of being diversified, not being so aggressive with all of his money, having a balanced approach. So, we talk about the barbell strategy. Rick Sapio, love that analogy of the barbell strategy.
Teresa,
Yeah.
there's something that you say too, where you say, if you give each dollar a job, you're not going to give each dollar the job of chasing risk, right?
Right.
Can you speak to that some?
Yeah. So we look at people's balance sheets, and for example, your client, John, his balance sheet today is very different than it was before, right? But if before he had given every dollar the job to go chase risk, would he have had as much money as he did with the market volatility as he needed to invest in that business? Maybe that opportunity wasn't going to be available to him to invest in that business, or maybe it would have been available, but at a lower amount, right? And so we all need, to look at our balance sheets and say, every dollar has a job, and what is the percentage of my total balance sheet that I'm going to give the job of chasing risk? And most people, besides their house, have almost 100% of their dollars chasing risk. It's just how we're programmed. It's how we're wired in our society. Wall Street and real estate and education and, the whole real estate educating community, crypto and day trading and all of that. It's chase risk, and no one talks about positioning money in reserves. And it's been something that we've been talking about a long time. Rick Sapio, when we started working together, and he articulated the barbell strategy. It's just another analogy to describe, look, a barbell, right? It's got weights on both sides in order for you to be able to lift it. And the more you've got a balanced weight, the more you can lift. While most people have their barbell on one side, very, very heavy in risk, and very little to balance it out in their safety. And it's hard for them to wrap their brains around, well, wait a minute, why do I have money in reserves, not making anything? Forget about the policy, just, in a checking account or savings account, not making anything. And it's because of the programming. Every dollar's got to chase risk. You've got to leverage everything. We teach differently. And John, you did a great job with your client. And I would love to hear, from him personally, like, that I can see my clients' faces, their glow, their enthusiasm around, their gratitude for having the foresight to implement the strategy. Because it just gives so much.
Yeah, I don't know if you've had that happen this year, Teresa, but with the markets being down, the financial markets, I've had numerous clients thank me for setting them up properly and having them more balanced.
COVID was huge. We were insane with calls and clients, reaching out to us and having questions about their policies, et cetera. And they were so grateful that they had the insurance in place. Very interesting, because most people don't start this because of the death benefit, but they were like, okay, thank God I got that death benefit if I die from COVID. And thank God I got this money set aside away from the volatility. So yeah, COVID was big. And of course the markets today. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a double whammy with COVID and then the market volatility, the interest rate hikes, the inflation that we're experiencing. I think people are starting to realize that there is a place for safe money, and it's important to have money someplace where it's liquid and growing guaranteed.
Absolutely.
So John, Teresa, let's say someone is listening and they're interested in starting a policy and using the dual asset strategy with their own finances. How do they get started? How does the process work?
Teresa, you want me to go?
You're always so polite, John. Yes, you can go.
Basically, they can reach out and request an intro call with Teresa or myself or our team. And it's just a intro call to get to know one another. And then if they want to know about how it would work, then we would put together a design, based on their information, their goals, their objectives. And then we would go to application. If they want to move forward, they would go to application, because it is life insurance. You do have to qualify for it. And most people do, unless you have some serious health issues going on. And then once we get an approval, then we can implement and put it in place. It's pretty simple.
And one thing I would add to that, since this is geared towards the real estate community, so many members of our community are wanting to be real estate investors full time and looking to get away from their W-2 jobs, their jobs, right? And if you are considering this concept, this strategy to implement, we urge you not to quit your day job until you speak to us. Because once you quit your day job, the ability for you to qualify from a financial underwriting perspective becomes more difficult. Not that you can't qualify, but it's a lot more difficult. So we urge you to communicate with us before you quit your day job if you're seriously considering the strategy. And, it's an easy, quick conversation. Can the strategy meet your objectives and what you're trying to accomplish? Yes or no. And we can help you, explore whether it can or cannot, or whether now is the right time or not.
Absolutely, Teresa. Another thing, we have MM5 coming up here in a couple months in November. And Teresa, you and John will be attending for the second time this year. And you'll be hosting a lunch and learn. So talk a little bit about how someone that might be interested in this strategy can really benefit from that lunch and learn.
Well, we'll be talking about, the dual asset strategy, certainly, and we'll be giving a few case studies on how the dual asset strategy has worked for our real estate investing community. We also will be diving a little bit deeper into some levers, so to speak, some interesting twists to the dual asset strategy that can help our clients get even more out of the dual asset strategy. So it'll be really exciting. You do have to qualify in order to attend the lunch and learn, and the details will be provided here shortly.
All right, wonderful. John, Teresa, any closing thoughts for today?
All right, I'll just look forward to seeing everybody in Florida. Should be a fun event, and looking forward to sharing. Like Teresa said, we're going to unveil some advanced strategies on top of what we're doing. But a lot of people will be excited about. So
that's awesome, Teresa.
No, that's it. Thank you, Kristin, for hosting.
Yeah, thank you, Kristin.
All right. Well, thank you both. Appreciate your time today. And thank you for everyone listening in. Have a wonderful day.